I appreciate everybody joining the call today. My name is Orrin Heatlie. I'm a retired sergeant from the Yolo County Sheriff's Department, and I'm the lead proponent for the RecallGavin2020.com team. I'm here to tell you that we've assembled a team of talented and skilled professionals over the last 9 months to give this opportunity to Californians to take swift and decisive action to recall Governor Gavin Newsom. We all have deep and personal reasons to recall this governor, and my team and I have assembled a vast statewide network. We have 70 volunteer groups throughout the state. There's nearly 50,000 members on those groups. They're managed by layered management, and I don't want to go too deeply into that. But what I'm describing is that we have the organizational structure and the management system in place to get this done. We need your help to do it as boots on the ground, volunteers, people that are going to help us with this. This is a monumental task, but with your help, we can succeed. Californians need to come together, pull our resources to get this job done. And with that being said, I'm going to turn this meeting over to our moderator, Steve Frank. Steve?
Thank you very much, Orrin, and thank you all for visiting with us this evening to be part of the beginning of a historic occasion, the recall of a governor of the state of California. On the call, we're going to have Tom Beccaro talk about the policy issues, why he should be recalled. After that, I will be speaking about the administration of the recall operation. And finally, Mark Meuser will be speaking about the messaging and some of the legal issues involved in this. And at that point, some of the questions which have been submitted previously will be answered by the three of us. So first, let me introduce our first presenter, Tom Beccaro. He's the author of a book that is very valuable in today's world called Divided Era. He's also been on Fox News. He writes for Fox Online. He writes for Forbes Online. He writes for Epoch Times and a lot of other journals. And you could see him on TV and hear him on radio. And he's somebody that knows California and knows the history of California. Tom, please speak.
Steve and Orrin, thanks so very much, and thank you everyone for being on the call and for your interest in this process. Tonight I want to talk to you briefly about three things: why this is necessary, why it can succeed this time, and ever so briefly about what it will take to succeed leading into Steve and Mark's presentation. So first, let's start off with the three reasons I believe this is necessary at this moment in time. This is a very important, propitious time in California history. We all know the demographics of this state are moving in a particular direction. We all know about how California is becoming bluer in many respects by the month, if not the day. This is a moment in time when we can speak up, when this state can have its rudder directed in the right direction, and the recall is the best method for that. So let's talk about these three reasons why this is necessary. Number one, Gavin Newsom is a failed governor. There is no other way to look at this. He knew what he was getting into when he ran for governor, and he has not done well with it. He's done terrible. Think about it. Our state cannot consistently and safely deliver energy to its people and its businesses. It was so bad last year that the tech industry gave a warning that they would have to leave unless they could be guaranteed the safe delivery of energy. The state can't provide consistent water supplies. They can't provide it to the farmers, and they're threatening in the capital to give people 50 gallons a day. That's a failure of policy. And now, as you've watched in the last 2 to 3 weeks, The state can't even provide safety to its citizens. So we can't deliver energy, we can't deliver water, and they can't deliver safety. Other than that, things are going really well. But you know what? It's in some ways going to be a long, hot summer because things are going to get worse. We've seen how Gavin Newsom has failed to manage the COVID incident. He has placed this in economic disaster. Beyond that, he's got a $54 billion deficit, and he's going to want to raise taxes on you. And, of course, he wants to gut Prop 13, and he's going to try and solve the $54 billion deficit by raising taxes on you. And, oh, by the way, PG&E is getting ready to shut down power again. To me, inability to deliver energy, water, safety, the COVID disaster, a $54 billion deficit, PG&E, tax increases, and gutting Prop 13, that's a failed governorship. He has proven he is not up to the job. But it's not just that he's a bad governor. He's also an unlawful governor. We don't truly have an emergency. To have an emergency under the code, you have to have an overwhelmed system. I'm in Contra Costa. There's 11 people in the hospital. I feel for them. But you cannot shut down a county over 11 people in the hospital. He has repeatedly flouted the law, going back to his mayor of San Francisco, and he continues to do it today. He tramples your rights. So it's not just that he's mismanaging the state. He is also trampling on your rights. And that's not acceptable, because once you take away someone's rights, if you don't fight back, that becomes the new norm. And I don't think anyone on this call thinks what we've seen in the last 3 years should become the new norm. So the first reason we've got why this is necessary is he's a failed governor. The second, he's an unlawful governor. And the third is we must push back. You cannot allow government to take your rights. Politicians want to do it all the time, but we must push back. So, bad governor, unlawful governor, and we must push back. 3 reasons why this is necessary. Now, importantly, why can this succeed where it didn't before? Now, the initial attempts, well-meaning, but I think the temperament and the feelings in the state hadn't gelled yet. Newsom was going to go along like others governors and steal the car tax money, but that didn't seem to be enough. His incompetence didn't actually affect that many people in the state, and there's a sense in the business community that you don't really want to anger your governor because you don't want him to turn on you. Well, all of those things, or virtually all of them, have changed. As I tell people on the radio and on TV, Gavin Newsom is no longer a threat. A threat is something that may happen. Gavin Newsom is actively damaging the entire state economy. He is actively damning the rights of many people. He is a clear problem, not a future problem. He is present, and he will not adjust in a manner that is acceptable. He is not being inclusive and listening to others. He's only reacting to the lawsuits filed by Mark Meuser's firm and others. He is reluctantly reacting. He is not a leader. So in a real sense, things are different. The business community is at wit's end. People are losing their job. People of faith find it ridiculous that we can have protests but not mass. And along those lines, I think that changes things. Now, I want to talk just briefly before Steve talks about what it will take to succeed. Steve's going to give you some of the very intense particulars, but I want to talk to you on a broader fashion. I mean, we know we need, to get 1.5 million signatures, you need over 2 million signatures. And this will take a massive volunteer effort and some money to get some paid signatures. And I'm going to be announcing a new PAC in the coming days, which will raise money to supplement our efforts. But at the end of the day, undertakings of this sort are really a question of will. And that's where we are right now. We can all point fingers. We can all be critics. But to succeed, we have to have greater will than Gavin Newsom and the others. And in a very real aspect, special elections and recalls are designed for the minority to succeed. I know this from decades. My father was part of how James Buckley got elected U.S. Senator in New York in 1970 as a very minority party. And that was some of my earliest teachings on this subject or experience in politics. I was part of and worked to help get Gray Davis recalled. And what I learned from those lessons is desire and will matter. And the fact that you're on this phone listening to us tells me that that desire and will resides in you. So the question for all of us, whether it's Steve Frank, Mark Meuser, Orrin, or myself, and you, are we willing to take the necessary steps? It was much harder to fight a revolution than it is to do what you're about to be asked to be done. It will take time, it will take commitment, but I know it's worth it because we can make a difference. If we recall Gavin Newsom, it sends a shot across the bow of not only this state, but the entire country that we believe in a balanced and lawful governorship of this state, and we're not going to take it anymore. So at the end, you'll realize that to do this, it's not rocket science stuff. It is effort, desire, and meaning. It is working together, and it is explaining to our friends throughout this state who are going to be faced with tax increases in the months to come, power shutdown, and more, that we're on their side, that we can bring balance to this state. So, again, this is Tom Del Beccaro. I appreciate your efforts. I'm going to stand there with you. I'm going to get signatures. My new PAC, which you'll hear about next week, will be raising money in order to supplement your efforts. And I congratulate everyone on the call for taking the important first step in recalling Gray Davis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate your good words. This is Steve Frank again. Some people think I've been around since before the Beatles were around, the life form, not the singing group, as Tom Del Beccaro would say. I was involved in 1978, at 77 and 78, with the gathering of signatures for the Prop 13, working directly with Howard Jarvis and the lady in charge of it by the name of Jane Nerpel. And so I've been involved in signature gathering for many years for petition drives that are major. And the significance of that is that was almost all a volunteer operation. At that time, we had almost no paid petitioners. We had volunteers statewide, and that was before the days of the Internet and Zoom and conference calls, and communication wasn't the same as we have today. And so it was much more difficult. But we managed to get the necessary signatures on what became Prop 13 from a volunteer effort. And that is where I believe that we can make this a success. Some people have asked the question about who's your paid consultant, who's your paid strategist, who's your paid communications person. I'm pleased to say we have none of that. We have volunteers who have worked in the vineyards for years doing that sort of work, people who have volunteered their time and effort, like Tom, myself, Mark, and others, Orrin, all the people behind the scenes who are working on this at the top level, putting this together over the last several months. These people are all volunteers. No one's taking any money. This is a volunteer effort. Let me also mention that besides being an all-volunteer effort, this is not about a political party or a political ideology. This is something bigger than that, and quite frankly, more important than that. This is about the future of California. When Governor Newsom closed down businesses, he didn't close down and get rid of jobs for Republicans or Democrats. He got rid of jobs for Californians. When he closed down the churches and keeps them closed, it's not Republicans that can't go in or those who are declined to state. It is all Californians who are barred from going to church services, to synagogue. These are the type of things that the governor has done to all Californians, and all Californians need to be angry. There's been a question, of course, what's the difference between the effort previously and the effort now? And Tom hit upon it, but let me give a underline to that. Before the two other efforts, those efforts were before the governor decided to show his true colors as a regressive governor, somebody who really wanted to be an authoritarian figure in the state. Not only did he take away the power of the people, he literally took away the power of the legislature. So everybody should be angry. So now we get to what we call the nuts and bolts of a campaign. And this is a campaign. It's a campaign for the future of California. And the campaign is going to be run along normal lines. We're going to have a number of regional chairs. Some counties, like Los Angeles County, are going to be broken up into 5 parts because it's so big. San Diego will have 3 parts. Riverside, it will have 3 parts. Orange County will have 2 parts. Most of the other counties will be united in 1 part as a county. But we're going to be working very strongly with weekly regional chair calls along with regional and community and county chair calls once a week. And on those calls, the county chairs and the regional chairs are going to announce the number of signatures that they gave. You know, Rudy Giuliani, when he was mayor of New York, created a system called ComStat, in which all the precinct captains would meet once a week and give their crime statistics, and that was to show where they were doing well and where they had to prop it up and give some more help. And that's what we're going to do. As volunteers, we have plenty of people to mentor the regional chairs and the volunteer chairs. We're going to also have a massive effort in social media, and that's really where it's going to take off. We do not want this to be a campaign of what some people call keyboard commandos. It's not enough to send out email messages or to write a note on social media about the recall, but you have to actually do the work itself, besides spreading the message and getting more people involved. Social media is very important to us to spread that. All of you, or almost all of you, have Facebook accounts, Twitter accounts, Instagram accounts, and other social media accounts where you can go to other groups and ask them to support us. In the near future, we'll have another town hall, and we'll ask you to pass a message about that town hall so more people and new people can come on the call. But the most important thing is the actual items that we need you to do. One, the most important thing is we need what's called shock and awe. And that means in the first 14 days that we create 100,000 signatures, and that will help us in the fundraising by showing the donors that this is a serious effort. And in fact, it reminds me of the story about how do you eat an elephant, and the answer is one bite at a time. and we're going to ask each of you to take one bite of the elephant each day by downloading the petition from the website and getting 10 signatures a day for the next 10 days. Send it into the address below on the petition so it could be counted, sorted, and verified, so we can then be prepared to send it over to the registrar of voters in each of the counties. Let me add that this is extremely important that we get 100,000 in the next 10 days, starting from the day that we get the signatures, the petition allowed to be distributed, which Orrin said will be either tomorrow afternoon or Friday, we hope, at the latest. Where would you get this petition? You don't have to send away for it. You don't have to ask a friend, do you have any? You go to recallgavin2020.com, recallgavin2020.com, and you'll be able to download the petition from that, and you can also use that same website, recallgavin2020, to volunteer. If you'd like to work with a region chair, if you would like to be a co-chair in a county or become a county chair, or if you live in Clovis, or if you live in Del Norte, or if you live in Chico or Chino and want to be the town chair, you can go to recallgavin.com, volunteer, and make sure you give us just 3 things: your name, your email address, and a good phone number so we could reach you by phone. So the first step, the first item that we really need you to do is get 100 signatures over the next 10 days at the rate of 10 a day. Obviously, you can get more. Second, we want to make sure that we have volunteers. Now, all of you on the phone are already going to be volunteers. We know that because you wouldn't have spent an hour with us tonight if you didn't care enough about the state and weren't angry enough about the state situation. And so we know you aren't there, but you may have friends that are politically active, people who are active in HOAs, who are active in the Chamber of Commerce, etc., in community groups, all of which have been affected. We need to have those people involved. Next, we need you to call talk radio. There's going to be, over the next few days, several talk shows around the state that we're going to have spokespeople on throughout the state, talking on talk radio to get folks involved with the recall effort. This is going to be an important part of it for the first days. Once we get that 100,000, the media will come to us for information. Next, we need to expand the effort to groups, churches, and businesses. If I was the chair in Simi Valley, which is where I live, I would go to the churches which have been harmed because they're closed and ask them to help us with the signature gathering. I would go to the realtors who have been harmed and get the realtors to help us get signatures. I would go to the jewelry shop. I would go in front of Walmart, Costco, Target, and get the people who come in and out of there wearing those masks and having them say, hey, I want to join your effort. I will sign a petition. And for your information, Walmart, Target, and these others are now allowing people to have tables in front of those buildings or facilities and having you sign them. So it's you can go to Walmart, you can go to Target. All you have to do is ask permission of the manager, and under the state law and a federal Supreme Court decision, you're allowed to do that. So there are many ways of going, but the most important thing is to get folks who are from the who have been harmed the most. There are realtors doing it. Now, one other thing that's important in all this, we're going to have a lot of people who are angry with the state of California, and we're going to tell them, if you're really angry and you want to thank Governor Newsom for deep sixing the state, sign the petition. And don't forget, at the same time, these people are angry enough to sign a petition. Remind them, and not telling them who to vote for or what to vote for, but remind them that it's important that they vote in November, on November 3rd, so that those people go to the polls to help push the momentum, because by that time we'll have enough signatures to get this done on time, and which is around November 1st is our 160-day period. So at that point, we're able to not only get the successful completion of the first part of the job, which is putting the recall on the ballot, but we can also make a difference by getting all those people who signed the recall to get them to vote. You don't have to tell them how to vote, just tell them to vote. So that'll give you an idea. We are all available through the website. Many of you know us. You can contact us directly. But this is going to be a very important effort for all of us. Maybe as I look back on Prop 13, which may be the most important political thing I've ever done in my life, this is going to meet that one, because the recall of a governor under these circumstances is not an opportunity, it's a mandate. With that being said, I'd like to introduce a good friend, an attorney who so far, and I hope my count is right, has 13 lawsuits against the governor. He may have more by now. That's a week old, that list of 13. And a great attorney for us, Mark Meuser. Mark, please give us your message.
Hey, thank you very much, Steve, and thank you, all of you who are joining us this Thursday night to discuss recalling the governor. As you guys know, in 2018, I was your Republican candidate for Secretary of State, and over the last 2 months, Harmeet Dillon and I at the Dillon Law Group have filed 14 lawsuits against Gavin Newsom because of his violations of your fundamental constitutional rights. And, you know, I knew that this recall was going, but last weekend, the United States Supreme Court decided that it was not going to step in and intervene and allow churches to open up ahead of Gavin Newsom's schedule. The issue is not foreclosed. We've still got litigation that's going on in those particular cases, but the Supreme Court said, you know what, we're going to keep our hands clean, and we are not going to get involved in whether we should, during the emergency, determine whether the governor is making the right decision. We'll look at it after the fact, but not during the fact. And so it was at that moment that I realized that, you know what, we the people are the only ones left to actually hold Gavin Newsom accountable. And 2022 is too late. And so that's why I want to give a great thanks to Orrin in getting this ready so that hopefully starting tomorrow we can start gathering signatures. Because the California legislature has decided that it's not going to, even though it's losing its power, even though Gavin is becoming both the legislature and the governor of the state, the legislature is not going to hold him accountable. The judges who are responsible for being a check on a governor who's violating the Constitution has decided that it's going to sit on the sidelines. And so as such, we the people have two choices. We could either retreat and go move to another state, or we could stand and fight. And I have chosen to stand and fight and to take this issue on now. I don't want to leave my state. I believe in Californians, and I believe we actually have an issue now that will galvanize the people and allow them to actually be the second time that this state has recalled the governor. Now, here's the best piece of advice that I can give every one of you. If you go to recallgavin2020.com and go to the About Us page, there is a laundry list of reasons why we should recall Gavin Newsom. But here's the deal. everybody loves to hear themselves speak. And people are waiting to tell you their problems. And so, if you want people to sign your petition, all you have to do is ask a question. What do you think of the COVID-19 in the state of California? And they're going to just let you know. And within probably 30 seconds, they're going to give you a reason that you can say, you know what? What Gavin did there was wrong. And that is why there's a group of us standing up to recall Gavin Newsom. Here is my petition to recall Gavin Newsom. Will you sign it? And after they sign it, then what you need to do is say, by the way, I happen to have a blank form with me. Would you mind going and taking this blank form and getting 10 signatures and mailing it in? That way you are fulfilling your obligation of getting signatures, but then you are also being a leader and getting other people involved in this project. Because even if every last person on this phone call got 100 signatures, we still are not going to, in the next 10 days, we're still not going to have enough signatures to get to 100,000. We not only need everybody in this phone call to go get their 100 signatures, but we have to grow this effort. But we can't all be leaders, talking and getting on social media being the, keyboard warriors. Each and every one of us needs to be responsible for first being a volunteer and first getting our signatures, and then second, after we've gotten our first 100, then we can start spending more time trying to branch out the effort. It is critical that we have a very solid first 14 days, because that will enable Tom and his PAC to raise even more money to help augment your guys' effort. It is a lot of work to grab 2 million signatures across this state. With 40 million people, that's basically 1 in every 8 people in the state. And remember, if you're below age 18, you're not eligible to even sign it. So there's a lot of people that have to sign it. It's going to take a massive effort. It's up to you. And at 10 signatures a day, well, maybe you go to the post office at 9 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you grab signatures until you get your 10. Maybe you go to the Walmart and get permission and stand there for 2-3 hours on Saturday, and you get your full 100. It doesn't matter how you do it, whether you just go knock door to door, whether you take it to, just go business to business down Main Street. These business owners are furious. Just go to any restaurant and say, hey, I'm circulating the petition, and you'll probably get every wait staff, every owner, manager signing that petition. Just don't go during their rush hour, busy time. Go to the barber shop and get every barber and beautician and nail salon to sign it. This is going to be easy if you take the time. It's not going to happen if you do not take the time. Tom laid out many, many great reasons why we need to recall Gavin Newsom. And as I said, if you go to the website Recall Gavin 2020, about us and then reasons to recall, there is a laundry list of things. But one thing that I think we are all forgetting about is AB 5. Before this even happened, Gavin Newsom destroyed the gig economy. That means every Uber driver, every Lyft driver, every person who wrote articles for newspapers, every photographer, whether you're doing weddings or whether you're doing senior photos, this thing affected so many Californians that the number of people who want to recall Gavin is astronomical. And all you have to do is ask them what they think of COVID-19, what they do not like about what their California governor is doing. And as we let them tell us what they do not like, they are going to give you the reasons why you could then ask them, wow, sounds like you're pretty upset. Why don't you sign this petition to recall Gavin Newsom? And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Steve and just remind everybody that this is a monumental effort, but it's one that you can be proud of to tell your grandchildren that when tyranny stood up in California, you did not remain silent. You were at the first of the line to make it happen.
Well, thank you, Mark. That was an inspiring message. We have to remember this is not a political thing. This is about literally the future of our state. And if we don't act, who will? Those of us who are concerned need to make others concerned and tell them how they could use it. One interesting idea that's been given to me by message while this has been going on is somebody suggested we go to the churches and we just have a sign, churches closed, thank Gavin Newsom, sign the recall. You go to businesses that have been closed. You lost your job, thank Gavin Newsom, sign the recall. And let's thank Gavin Newsom with a signature on a recall. Now, there have been a lot of questions that have been presented to us for this conference call. And Tom, you have a couple of questions that were sent to you.
Okay, the first question people that I was assigned to talk about is what happened to the prior signatures. And unfortunately, all those signatures gathered in the past are no longer usable. Each petition for a recall stands on its own, and you can only turn in those signatures. And you can go, Orrin did a great job in getting 2 one-page versions, and so you get to print out the one page and make sure every signature is filled out, the whole line, everything perfectly, because you know that the Secretary of State in this instance is going to do what he can not to have these signatures be valid. So, first question, what happened to the signatures collected in the past? None of those are valid anymore. If you still have some, don't include those in the pack. That's number one. Number two, what is an actual recall? So a recall election, once we qualify this, just has 2 simple questions on the ballot. Question number 1, should Gavin Newsom be recalled? Yes or no? Question number 2, which of the following people, which person among the following, language essentially like that, which person among the following should be governor? And the answer is, the winner is not who gets 50%, but who among the many that will be there below gets the most. So I fully expect, after studying these things for years and years and years, and remembering what happened with Gray Davis, that there will probably be 60 to 90 people on that ballot. And because of that, the winner is probably going to be someone who gets in the 20 to 30% range. And that is really meaningful because it is obviously easier to get to 20% than it is to 50%. This is the very best opportunity to displace this particular governor because the winner is what they call a plurality. Those who have the most votes but don't reach 50%. So, in summary, the recall election has 2 questions on it. Who should the governor be recalled, and who among the following would you want to replace them? Thanks, Steve.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. Mark, I believe you also had a couple of questions.
Yes. Okay. The first question I was asked was, should we make photocopies or take pictures of the signatures we collect in order to keep track in case they get lost, or is there a legal issue with that? The first thing is that we need original signatures. So if you were to take a picture or a copy of something that you send to the organization, those pictures or copies actually do no good, and so I would actually recommend that you don't do it. The organization itself will make copies of stuff before they turn into the register of voters throughout the county, and that is just to preserve an evidence trail for if we have to get into litigation later on. But you as an individual, just because you take a copy of something, we're never going to be allowed to turn in that copy. So if the post office actually loses it, it doesn't do us any good. So you, as an individual volunteer, you don't need to worry about doing photocopies. Allow the organization to do that before we send that in. The second question I was asked is, do we have a team who will deliver petitions to registrar's office and demand a receipt? The answer to that is yes. And Orrin has been organizing a group of volunteers across the state, and they will be taking care of that. Next question is, do we have lawyers lined up if a registrar refuses to give a receipt? And yours truly is a lawyer. We have several other lawyers who actually are on this, and by the time we get down there, we may have a whole team of lawyers prepared to fight these issues. Final question is, if Gavin is removed, the lieutenant governor is also a Democrat, so what guarantees do we have that she won't have strings pulled by powerful Democrats? The way how this works is, as Tom just explained a few seconds ago, there are two questions on your ballot. And so if the majority of the people in the state of California vote yes, that they want the governor recalled, the day that the Secretary of State certifies that vote count, which means all the ballots have been counted across the state, all the county register of voters have done their double checks and triple checks, and they've done their reconciliation, and they send a report to the Secretary of State saying, here is our list. The Secretary of State then adds up all those numbers, and they officially certify the election. On the date that that certification happens, which is about a month after the election, that date, that moment, Gavin Newsom is no longer the governor. The governor is the person who received the plurality of the vote. So the lieutenant governor never steps in to be the governor. The lieutenant governor remains lieutenant governor. And so those were my three questions, Steve.
Well, thank you very much, Mark.
Steve, there's a point I make with regard to what happened to the prior signatures. They do go away, but any registered voter can re-sign a new petition. So the fact that you've signed it before doesn't disqualify you from signing again, and people should know that so they can tell the people when they're asking for new signatures.
Well, thank you. I have a couple of questions also. There's been one question that asks, if you only have one signature, can you turn in the petition? And the answer is yes, but be careful, and this is for all the petitions. There is a spot on the petition that says, I don't think I have the right word, distributor, the person who is collecting the signatures, you have to sign that portion also. So if I sign it as I want the Newsom recalled, I could sign that, and then at the bottom, it's circulated by, and I would put my name there as well. Obviously, we would hope that we would get more than one name per sheet, but you can send in just one. There's also a question about the role of the lieutenant governor after the recall and another person becomes governor. As Mark said, the lieutenant governor doesn't automatically become governor unless they run for governor themselves and win it on the second part of the ballot. but it really doesn't matter once we have a new governor, because that would say to the people and to the politicians that the people are taking back their state. There's also a question, how do you get him out of office? Mark made it very clear. It's the Secretary of State who eventually certifies the signature, the votes on the first part, yes and no, and then the Secretary of State, with counting all the ballots from around the state, makes a determination. Now, let's make it clear. You do not have to have a majority to win the governorship in a special election. There is no runoff provision. It's a plurality. It is not a majority vote. So you don't get a second vote at another time. So we at the last time in 2003, there was 132 people who ran for governor, and I would expect somewhere in that neighborhood to do it again, because people like to see the names on the ballot, and that is just the way it is. Then the question, and Mark, can you tell us about the recall, how it's actually called by the Secretary of State?
I guess I don't understand your question there real quick.
Okay.
Can you restate?
Signatures are into Lassen County, LA County, and but who actually calls the election? Is it the governor? Is it the attorney general? Is it the Secretary of State? And is it mandated, if there are enough signatures, that there has to be a special election for a recall?
Yes. So the law is very clear how many signatures we have to have. We, of course, are bumping that number up a little bit just because some people are going to sign twice. Some people may not put their right address down. Some people, there could be other technical difficulties. And so we have, looking at this from the past, we have discovered that it's about 2 million signatures that we really need to get our hands on. But that being said, the number is based upon the number of votes that were cast in the governor's race in 2018. And so there's a mathematical formula. And every 30 days, and I'll say that our clock officially starts tomorrow. Every 30 days, starting for tomorrow, the county registers of voters are going to have to report to the Secretary of State and say, this is how many signatures we have. And as soon as that number hits 10%, the Secretary of State is going to tell the counties, okay, 10% of the signatures have been obtained, and as such, you need to start verifying the signatures. And so what the Register of Voters will do, because these signatures are not turned into the Secretary of State, they are turned into the County Register of Voters. So if you live in LA, your signature may go up to our group, but our group is going to send it back down to the LA coordinator, who's going to walk it into the office in LA and get a receipt for how many signatures that they have turned in. And then when the county ROV receives word from the Secretary of State that, hey, so many signatures, we now have 10%, you start verifying, what they do is they open up the voter registration rolls. And they go, Jane Smith, 123 Main Street. Jane Smith, 123 Main Street. The signatures are similar. That's a valid signature. And they're going to go down the list until they have all the, until they have them done. So they may say, okay, in LA County, 10,000 signatures were turned in, but of that, 9,500 are valid, and then they will report that in their every 30-day report to the Secretary of State, every 30 days from now until the Secretary of State receives word that there are enough signatures in possession that a recall can happen. Once that happens, a clock starts, and it's called the 30-day clock. And during that 30 days, anybody who signed the petition can basically go to the register of voters and say, I no longer want my signature to be counted. And so then the Secretary of State looks at the number of people who withdrew their signatures and asks the question, are there still enough people who want the signatures, who want to recall? And in that case, because we're going to prevail, the Secretary of State is going to say, okay, they have enough valid signatures because we're going to turn in way above what is required of us. The 30-day clock is over. The Secretary of State then notifies a special finance committee that's going to look at what it's going to cost the state, and then that report gets handed off to the joint legislative committee, and they look at those costs, and both of those are 30-day time periods. And now, so about 90 days after we turn in enough signatures, the Secretary of State is going to hear back, okay, the state has done all their administrative stuff. The special election is to be called. Now, generally, that goes to the governor. It is the governor's duty to call the special election, except when the governor is being recalled, in which case it goes to the Attorney General. And the Attorney General is to call the date of the recall. And he must call the date of the recall within somewhere between 60 and 80 days. So if we turn in all of our signatures by November 1st, that would mean that the end of the signature withdrawal period is December 1st. It means the first committee is done by January 1st. The second committee is done by February 1st. The Attorney General is going to call the special election 60 to 90 days. So basically, we would be looking at April 1st, where we would go in and we'd get to select yes or no, do we want to recall him? And then we would go down and select the name of the individual that we want to be our next governor. And nobody knows who's going to be on that list because nobody is allowed to file to run for governor until the Attorney General declares the date of the election. And the window can be very short because if the Attorney General calls it for a 60-day window, it's actually day 59 you have to have your paperwork in. So if he gives it the full 80 days, then you're going to have about 21 days in which you can get your paperwork in to run for governor. But if he does it on the most tightest deadline of 60 days, everybody who's running for governor will only have 1 day to go gather their signature, to pull their paperwork, gather their signatures, fill out all the paperwork, and turn it back into their county register of voters. So I hope that answers your question there, Steve.
It more than answers it, and it answers a lot of other people's questions as well. Tom, and then when we get finished with you, we'll wrap this up. Tom?
I just want to say to everyone to realize that the Secretary of State and the Democrats in Sacramento that are allied with Gavin are going to make this hard for us. And so we have to be overwhelming. This is an enormous opportunity in American history. Imagine if in California the people could speak again, what that would say. So I'm asking you personally, you know, this is our time. This is a moment you will remember where you brought California back from the brink.
Thank you, Tom. And what Tom has said is so accurate. What I've said before is this isn't about politics. It's about our future. And we have a say in what our future looks like. Do we keep Gavin Newsom? We've seen what he's done. Or do we get somebody in there that will be a representative of the people, not the special interest, not his own agenda, but somebody that truly represents the people of California? And I'd like to,
Steve,
on behalf...
Before we close, I don't want to miss this opportunity, and I don't want to interrupt you, and I apologize for doing so. The one thing, there's one glaring thing that needs to be addressed. How are we going to get this done? We're going to get this done through force multiplication. And I just want the people to know that as they have people sign the petition at their tables or in their gatherings, if they have blank copies with them, this is on an 8.5 by 11 standard paper form. If they have a blank copy, they can hand off to people, give it to them. They can take that with them, and then they can sign it. They can have it filled out, sign the declaration on the bottom. The address to mail these petitions into is critical, and this is why I felt it was so important to interject. The address that people are going to send these petitions into is on the bottom of every form. Everybody needs to know that. It's sent into P.O. Box 417030, Sacramento, zip code 95841, and it's on the bottom of every form. So if you have people sign, hand them a form. Ask them to sign or have 5 other people sign. This is the 5 by 5 theory, okay? So you sign 5, you have 5 people take their form and sign 5 more. And I think that that is a forced multiplication. That's how we're going to get this done. We have 160 days to get this done. Time is not on our side. And we need to move swiftly, and we need to be effective in what we do. Thank you, and that's all I have to say.
Great.
Sorry.
Orrin, thank you so much. And Orrin, thank you for taking the lead at the very beginning of this to get this started. We appreciate your efforts and the efforts of all the others on your team that have done this. And now, if we're going to win this, it has to be a larger team, a team of tens of thousands of Californians getting signatures to make this happen. So we're joining your team, Orrin, and the others to make sure that the people of California get their say back as to how the state is run. I'd like to thank everybody for taking an hour out of your time tonight. But that's not what we want from you. We want time each week for you to get signatures on the petitions and to work to get others to expand the base of the petitions so it makes it easier. The more hands on deck, the easier it is, the quicker it is, and maybe we could have the election sooner than ever. So that is all for tonight. Somebody asked the question, how many people are on the call? Orrin, if you know, otherwise we'll let you know at another time. I'm not sure. Last I heard there was about 700, but I don't know the final.
Steve, I got one last thing too. Yeah, there was about 700 on the call. I've had a lot of people asking me how they're going to get the petition. I just want to let everybody know as soon as we have the final petition in hand that it's been approved, it will be on the website for download. There will be a download link there. We will also send out an email to everybody, and we will also tell all the Facebook groups. So be prepared in the next day and a half for this to come out, but you'll be able to download one of the 2 or both of the petitions as there are 2 different sizes. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
And this is Tom wait a minute. This is Tom Del Beccaro. I want to reemphasize something Steve said. Money follows success. My ability to fundraise is going to be me saying, look, it's only 2 weeks in. They got 100,000 signatures. We need to join them. So please work hard these first couple of weeks. It becomes much easier. If people think this is going to be a success, they'll want to join the band.
Great. You're absolutely right. Again, thank you very much. This is going to be a crusade for the future of California. God bless, and go to the website, recallgavin2020.com. Thank you and good night.